Hi guys, thanks for stopping by. I'm Irene, this is Perpetually Paperback, and today I'm doing my mid-year book freakout tag. I got my notes for this one. I took copious notes. So we're just gonna go from the top. So the first question for this tag that I've seen a bunch of people do, and of course I'm late to the party, but we are here. Okay, so the first one is the best book you've read so far. And this one I went with Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. It was actually the first book I read this year. So I feel like this year I've read a lot of quantity, but I don't know that the quality has quite been there. It feels like I've read great books and then just not so great books. Nothing really kind of stood out except this one. This is the story about a girl who gets abandoned by her whole family, and she grows up on this swamp, and through the aid of some people that are around her, but mostly herself, she becomes this incredible person. And there's that storyline along with this murder investigation that's taking place in the town at the same time. It's just fantastic. The imagery you get in that book, the feeling, the characters. I have nothing but good things to say. It stuck with me. I'm so glad I read it. I really recommend it to anyone. It was absolutely 5 stars. It really feels atmospheric in the ambiance it creates, and I think that alone was just gorgeous. I didn't know anything about like estuaries basically, and this was it did a really good job of telling me all about that. Not only that, the character and the ending on this one, superb. The next one is the best sequel that you've read. I actually, it's weird because I do usually read a lot of series, but I haven't read very many this year. Of the ones I have, I really have not enjoyed the sequels. So I think I ended up going with Prince of Dreams by Julie Garwood. It was like a duology, and it just happens to be the second book. They're probably as closely related as her books really get. So it isn't necessarily like you can read each one of her books as complete standalones, but this is just, it happens to be the sequel that worked well enough and that I just kind of didn't hate. I hated the first one in the series though. It's not been good for me for series. But that book is essentially a historical romance that it has like Russian ties. I have a whole other video where I talk about those. Definitely check that out if you're interested in hearing more about that one. After that, a new release that you haven't read yet but want to. So for this one, I actually have it. I'm going to grab it because I love it. The Evening and the Morning by Ken Follett. I read the entire Pillars of the Earth series. It was a trilogy, and then there was a second trilogy after that. This is a prequel to all of that. And here are my thoughts on it. I'm a little bit scared to read it and not like it because each of the ones he wrote after I just liked a little bit less. None of them were bad. But for a 1,000-page book to be mediocre is a bummer. Also, I really want to like it, and I think my expectations at this point are a little bit high. Also, I don't know what the hell was wrong with me when I asked for this book, but I ended up getting it in a large print copy, which isn't necessarily bad. So now I can read it while I'm on the bicycle. But yeah, Ken Follett, The Evening and the Morning. Next, we have the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And for that, I'm gonna go with Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I'll put that book up in the corner. Obviously, it's not out yet. I kind of have decided that I really like Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So far, I think I've read almost all the books that she came out with. I haven't read Certain Dark Things? These Dark Things? One of her most recent releases. I just haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. I haven't gotten to that, but it is on my radar, and I am excited to get to that as well. But this one is Velvet Was the Night, and it has to do with a more social uprising part of Mexico City. So I don't know, I'm excited about it. So far, I've really liked the stories that she's laid out, her writing style. I've really enjoyed it. Next, we have the biggest disappointment of the year. I'm gonna go with The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. So up to this point, I had yet to find a historical romance that I did not like. Wow, did I not like that one. I at first thought that there was no historical romance that I could not like. No, this was it. This was it. I hated all the characters. I hated the way the story was laid out. I definitely think that the Bridgerton show did a better job of giving you the story, but in general, I don't know why it was picked at all, because yeah, I really did not enjoy this one at all. I struggled to get through it, and the only reason I got through it was because I was doing a video on it. I should have DNF'd that, honestly. It was not great, not enjoyable. I don't recommend it. I have another video where I'm talking about that in comparison to Bridgerton, where I definitely do a bit more of a rant. If you want to hear that, check it out. I will link it in the description below. After that, we have the biggest surprise of the year. And for that, I'm gonna go with Evelyn Hugo. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I've just been calling it Evelyn Hugo. So we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I don't actually have that book, so I'll put it up. I'm a big book lender. If there's one that I like, I want everyone to read it, and I do that immediately. I need to be better about that and taking better book pictures, but I digress. That one was really enjoyable. The reason I was thinking, and I should have known I should have liked it, I would have liked it, but the reason I was thinking, or that it would be a surprise, was because it's part of the author taste test video that I have coming out later, where the first book that I read by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I detested. Like, I hated it with a strong passion. So I didn't really have high expectations going in. How this book didn't get ruined for me is amazing, because it was actually really great. I loved the voices of all of the characters. I thought the characters were really well-rounded, and you know what Taylor Jenkins Reid does well? She doesn't have a problem giving you unlikable characters and writing good unlikable characters that you kind of want to root for anyway. And I really enjoyed that. I mean, honestly, this book was fantastic. It totally lives up to the hype. I really, really recommend it. It was a huge surprise for me. It basically follows Evelyn Hugo as she is being interviewed by this magazine. She specially handpicked this girl to do this interview, and there's a reason for that, and you find out later in the book. So there is a little bit of a suspense, like, you know something is happening, so you're kind of waiting for this, and they give little teasers along the way. The only thing I didn't like about it was the parts where we actually hear from the interviewer, that just kind of felt like they distracted from what ended up, from Evelyn's story that was super engaging. And then as she takes us through basically her life through her husband's, which is just such a lovely way of doing it. She has 7 of them. Anyway, moving on. The next book is New Favorite Author, Debut, or New to You. And for that, I go with Joe Abercrombie. I read A Little Hatred just recently. I talked about it in my June wrap-up, and Abercrombie is fantastic. Like, he's grimdark. The book itself wasn't very grimdark, in my opinion, I would say, but the writing was fantastic. He has some one-liners in there from some of the characters that are just divine. There hasn't been a book that I have just tabbed up or had to like stop and go and like highlight lines, and just as much as this one. I really, really enjoyed it. And what I've heard of the first series is that it is really grim, really dark, and I'm actually looking forward to it, especially, so like, I like any story that's written well. And this doesn't even need to have a plot. Like, it actually, this one didn't have very much of a plot. It basically follows 4 main characters that are kind of at the cusp of gaining their adult responsibility in their lives and how they work in society. So it's very political in it. It was way more political than I thought, which kind of felt very Sanderson-esque somewhat, but written very differently. Fantastic though, great writer, really enjoy it. As far as historical romance, I would say Sarah McLean. I've read two or three of her books and have loved them. Then I read another one and it was just like, wow, I don't know if you were just a different person when you were, I don't understand. You know what, I think it just deals with tropes that I don't really care for. So we're gonna go with that. But everything else I have loved that she's written. So she would be my choice for historical romance. Next we have a fictional crush, your newest fictional crush and newest favorite character, which actually for me, I'm gonna skip because I literally can't think of anyone that falls into either of those categories. I would say maybe for favorite character, I would go with Savine Dan Glokta, if not Glokta himself in A Little Hatred. by Joe Abercrombie. Truly fantastic. Then we move on to a book that made you cry. And for this one, I'm gonna go with Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. First off, I don't think there is a Bachman book that has not made me cry. It wasn't like full-on sobs. I should also say I'm a huge book crier. Like, everything makes me cry it doesn't even need to be good. And it'll just like get me. I'm like a super big crier. So this is a really bad category for me because I cried probably in like 50% of the books I read. But this one actually probably was the worst, maybe. It was really good. I really liked it. I don't dislike any book that makes me cry. It was lovely. It was so emotionally charged and introspective and beautiful and relatable. And just also another one that was written so fantastically. I absolutely recommend it. If you haven't read it, check out Anxious People. It was beautiful. It's the story of idiots. No, actually, well, yes, but it centers around a bank robbery that turns into a hostage situation as you meet all the characters and kind of work out some of your judgments against them honestly, go check this out because the author does an amazing job. It's also a lot funnier. Like, I know I've like talked about it being, it follows a heavy subject matter, but it is actually funny. Yeah. The most beautiful book that I've bought this year. I think the most beautiful book I bought this year was going to be The Lost Apothecary. The cover, everything about it. Actually, yes, that is the most beautiful book I bought because I remember I got it in the mail, and it's very rare that I get the package of like my book of the month package and I like sit down and start reading right away. That's a book that I did that with. Unfortunately for me, it didn't quite live up to the expectations that I had for it, or really it kind of fell a little flat for me towards the end, or at the end. There were some things I didn't really care for. I have a full video where I'm talking about that one, but that's definitely the most beautiful book. Finally, just getting to the end, I have a book that made you happy, and I'm going to talk about the book I just finished reading, Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This is a young adult novel, which honestly, I feel like young adult is great to make you feel like, I feel like young adult is always good to like just make you happy. There's nothing it talks about mildly serious things, but mostly not, and it's just fun. It follows the story of Evie, who kind of gets like Zoltar, sorta, and she starts seeing these visions every time someone kisses, and she's very against love. But in one of these situations, she gets somewhat roped into learning ballroom dancing, and the grandson of the people that own the studio is named X or Xavier, and he becomes her dance partner as they start to train for the Dance Hall LA, which is this big ballroom dancing competition. I did salsa dancing, which is a Latin ballroom based thing. In that capacity, it reminded me of being young and dancing and just having the time of my life. It was great. It was cute. It's very cute. And that made me very happy. It's also a really gorgeous book as well. And finally, the book to read, a book that I need to read by the end of the year. This one is going to be Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Full disclosure, this is one that actually my boyfriend and I are reading together. We've read all of the Stormlight Archive. We got about halfway through and then like kind of just lost interest. I feel like the end of this book, I kind of feel like we stopped at the part where it was just about to start to get like really, really good. But I think both of us had some problems with the beginning of the book and then just kind of, like I said, lost interest. So this is one that I definitely want to begin again from the beginning because it's just been so long since we started it, and just read it all the way through finally. I don't know how to feel about it. I was a lot more engrossed in the story on the first two. Oathbringer, to be honest, I found just a little bit boring for my taste personally, and Rhythm of War is kind of starting to get to that point, and maybe it's just because I really hate the Shallan chapters. Like, I detest Shallan. I'm sorry, come at me for that, but I don't like her. And I'm finding her chapters really, really difficult to get through, and it basically made us not give a shit. And yeah. But I digress. I do actually want to read it because I want to continue with the story, and I'm invested enough. Also, I love Adolin. I think Adolin might be my favorite character. I hope that doesn't get ruined in this one, but I don't know, there's something about him that I love. Kaladin was my favorite. Not so much anymore. I almost am finding him as annoying as Shallan. No, I'm sorry, I'm not. No, Shallan just irritates me to no end. But yeah, I think Adolin is my new dude. So let me know what your thoughts are. Please don't spoil the ending of Rhythm of War. I've heard mixed things on that one. But if you tell me what happens, I actually may not read it. And I don't want that to happen. But anyway, this is my mid-year book freakout tag, and yeah, I'm so excited to see yours. I've been watching tons of these. I love this tag. So see you again next year for this one. Bye.